And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart, Joe DeLeone, a.k.a. Bruno. Good evening, Bruno. How are we doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm back on the West Coast, back to my normal recording setting. No more weird glare. But, Blake, I'm excited. We've got the SEC schedule dropping later today. I don't know why. It's not
now.
as...
It's I mean,
well,
as
right
we're
now.
speaking, yeah, it's releasing now.
Yeah, but I'm excited for that. I'm curious to see if we get any juicy matchups that come out of it. But
we do have some leaks that are already happening. Alabama is going to be host to Georgia in 2024, which, listen, I'm going to stick up for Georgia fans here. They got pissed off today, and I don't blame them. They went down to Alabama in 2020. They should get their return game where Alabama comes to Athens. That's BS now. It's BS. If you look now, come on. Like, you got two juggernaut. Like, so for an example, I mean, really the turn of the tide could be in that game. And so now you got to go down to Tuscaloosa a second time in 3 and 4 years and play them again in the regular season.
I mean, maybe there's a little bit of manipulation, if you will, to help.
Oh, no. Nick's manipulating something? Well, no way.
Not him manipulating, but maybe there was a little bit of assistance with trying to keep down a certain team that is picking up steam and help one that is running out of a little bit of steam, if that makes a little bit of sense. I know that we're conspiracizing, if that's a word, early on before the schedule is even officially dropped.
Are you a conspiracy theorist?
When it comes to football, absolutely. Nothing else, though.
I'm a conspiracy theorist.
On what specifically? Yeah, I was going to say.
I do think I do think that there's some extraterrestrial out there.
That I think we could, and most people could get behind. But I'm definitely a conspiracy theorist when it comes to pro and college sports. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, and we'll find it out. But we did find out today, too, Joe, that every team in the SEC will either play Oklahoma or Texas in their schedule. So all 14 teams will either play Texas or Oklahoma. So the new teams coming in, you'll get somebody. But I think we'll get this, but it's just some sourcing from people. I think Georgia also has to go to Oklahoma.
Oh, wow. But how daunting of a trip is that?
But I mean, at what point what big game matchup would they have at home?
Well, I guess we're about to find out. That to me, I think, is probably based on what you just said there. Them having to go to Alabama and Oklahoma. I think the biggest storyline is going to be them not getting any favorable home matchups for 2024. But
that has been Georgia's complaint. And look, Joe, the biggest game they've had the last 5 years, arguably, was when Tennessee this past year came to town.
Well,
that's unacceptable.
Let me provide a little bit of count. I mean, they might still end up with a big game, but let me provide a little bit of a counterpoint here. When you're the top dog, you shouldn't have everything favorably be set up for you to continue to be the top dog. I'm not saying that you need to move the goalpost to help other teams, but things are going to be difficult no matter what.
They gave Big Ten gave USC Michigan at home. You got
to USC though.
True, but here's the bottom line. And by the way, somebody, I think Billy Lucci reported that A&M doesn't have to play. Oh shoot!
What?
All right, Joe, I got some breaking news. Here we go. LSU home games. SEC, Alabama at home, Ole Miss, Vandy, Oklahoma. Road games, A&M, Arkansas, Florida, South Carolina.
That's a pretty favorable schedule.
Wait, what were the Texas? I wanted Texas. I don't care about Oklahoma.
Well, we know why you wanted Texas. We know exactly why you wanted Texas, and that wasn't, you just have to wait a little bit. That's great. That's really advantageous for them, though, that they have Alabama at home. But it makes sense.
ESPN just confirmed our report. ESPN's confirming that report. So
Okay.
let me just read that again for LSU fans. Alabama, Ole Miss, Vandy, Oklahoma at home. On the road, A&M, Arkansas, Florida, and South Carolina.
Somebody said that sounds like last year's schedule, and that does sound very similar.
No, we didn't play. We did not play Vandy, Oklahoma. We didn't play South Carolina.
So there's 3 games that are different.
Yeah, 3 games that LSU did not play.
I know that there's a desire to kick the crap out of Texas, but I would argue that
I want to beat.
But it's still advantageous.
Hold on, I got Oklahoma's. Hold on, I got Oklahoma's.
Okay.
Alabama, South Carolina, they got away along with LSU. So Oklahoma's going to have to go on the road a lot. All right, here's Texas's. You want, as I'm getting the news right now, do you want me to read this off right quick?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, so they got Oklahoma. All right, they're going to keep Oklahoma. They also go to Kyle Field, Texas A&M. I'm getting this directly from the SEC, they're sending out the email. So Oklahoma and Texas A&M for them. Let's see. Oh, they go to. So I was wrong, Joe. Georgia is getting a massive home game. Texas goes to Georgia and the Longhorns and Athens. How about that?
See, that's a good poll because how does it say how early on? How early on is it in the season?
No, they don't have the dates yet. They just have the opponents.
opponents.
They also have Mississippi State, Vanderbilt. God, Vandy's going to get slaughtered.
As they always do. That Texas matchup is actually a really good pull for their big home game that they have on the schedule because Texas is going to be overranked. They're going to smack the crap out of them, and they get all the eyeballs. Probably it's going to be one of the most watched games because of the attraction for Texas. And then also there's probably going to be a ton of people that travel to that game from Texas because it's one of their first big matchups in the SEC. So that's a huge pull for Georgia. I think that makes up for what we're talking about having to travel to the other 2 opponents.
Texas also has to go to the Swamp.
That doesn't mean anything. Do we think Florida might have a new head coach by then?
Well, speaking about that, we're going to be doing our deep dive here.
Yes.
All right, they are coming out in order. Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, A&M, and Vandy for Texas. Alabama, Auburn, LSU. Oh, Oklahoma has 3 straight away games at Auburn, at LSU, at Missouri, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Tennessee. They have 3 straight road games.
Yeah, but it's not like
oh wait, that's just in alphabetical order.
Okay.
Pardon me. I was like, wait, why is everything in alphabetical order? But nevertheless, we are talking about Florida here tonight as well. We're going to do our deep dive. Joe, is Billy Napier in trouble?
Oh, absolutely. And we've said that on this program many a times, and I don't think that's going to change today.
Man. Poor Nape. Poor Nape.
He may not even be there for this when they play the schedule, man.
God. We'll see. We'll talk about them coming out of the break. But Oklahoma and Texas, some big matchups there. Texas going to Athens, and Oklahoma going to Death Valley. And let me tell you something. They're probably going to make that a night game.
Yes, absolutely. Is Oklahoma going to – wait, you think that even if – is that really that big of a matchup, though, for playing Oklahoma?
LSU it will be because we never played them at home.
Yeah, that'll probably be a night game then.
Yeah, it's going to be a night game. All right. So let's get this thing rolling. We'll talk about Florida. So everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share to all of those social media groups. You guys are continuously killing it for us on Facebook. So hit the like, hit the share all of those streams that we do on the Ruffino and Joe Show and AYS. Share them to all those groups you're on social media pages. If you listen to us on Fubo, if you're watching us on Fubo, welcome. I know that this might be the first time you're seeing our pretty faces here on Fubo. So go follow us on our socials, Ruffino and Joe Show, Joe DeLeone, and Blake Ruffino. Wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. And on YouTube, hit that subscribe button as well. All right, Joe, let's talk about our good friends over at BetOnline. Let's talk a little Florida. We're going to do a little Florida deep dive. And as I'll write some of these down as the big notoriety games come up, and then we'll talk about it about halfway through the show. So let's talk about BetOnline. Don't go anywhere. Be back next.
Let's get it.
BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events, with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. We're back. I'm just going to tell you right now. Texas is going to get obliterated their first year in the SEC, buddy.
I mean, that schedule doesn't sound very favorable, having to travel to Georgia. That's pretty messy, and I know we're going to talk about that in a bit.
They're going to get beat down. I'm just letting you know. So Texas, just as an example, has to go to Arkansas. They got Florida and Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, and A&M. Joe, I don't see a lot of wins there.
They did get a lucky pull of unless I misheard you. There's no LSU and no Alabama on there.
Not for Texas. Oklahoma's the one that has Alabama and look, and they got three road games, and it's all on the road. That's not favorable for them at all. So
no.
We'll see. But a guy that might not be there, or maybe he will, maybe he can turn the ship around, is going to be Billy Napier, Sunbelt Billy. Joe, a lot has been made about the University of Florida, man. A lot. Mm-hmm. Let me just, first off, as we do our Florida deep dive here, we're going to talk a lot of Florida here tonight, along with the SEC schedule. They do have some athletes now. They do have some dudes. What I don't like when I hear people talk about Florida is people misunderstanding that they don't have dudes, because they do. They got the Goodwin kid, the 5-star offensive lineman for Kentucky. He's going to probably play right tackle if he doesn't get moved over to left. Ricky Pearsall returns. Montrell Johnson, along with Trevor Etienne, returns. Chris McClellan, and I'm just going to tell you this. I don't know if Chris McClellan is going to be a good defensive tackle or not, but every Florida defensive lineman that ever wears a single digit for their team in the history of football is always a dude. Always a dude. So Chris McClellan, welcome to the show as he wears number 7. Here's where and look, they have a former 5-star safety that they recruited, Kamari Wilson. They have athletes, man. I know a lot of players at the portal. I know that you got a lot of things that they got to overcome. Here's the problem that I have with them. They're not that great on the outside. They're going to have to rely on some very young receivers. And by the way, Graham Mertz is going to be their quarterback. And Graham Mertz, I do not trust. I think that they fired Dan Mullen and thought that they would get better in recruiting. They're not. So, man, I don't have a lot of faith. I do not have a lot of faith in them.
Here's my thing with Florida, and I tried to bring this up when we did one of our SEC conference previews when we talked about Florida, and you pushed back pretty heavily on me. I think that Florida has a lot of work to do. But as you talked about here, they have a lot of athletes. They have a lot of good, explosive football players that need coaching, need to make improvements before they can actually actualize it on the football field. But they also had a really good transfer portal haul. Then you mentioned some of the kids that they got. RJ Moten from Michigan was one of the top-rated safeties that was in the portal. Caleb Banks, they pulled the defensive lineman from Louisville. And then I'm Goodwin, as you mentioned. I'm not going to try to pronounce his first name because
that's why I didn't either, because I would have obliterated it, man.
But he is with such a difficult position to recruit in the portal. Was one of the top tackles coming from the University of Kentucky. To pull that is going to bolster the offensive line. I'm also a pretty big fan of what Etienne brings to the running back position. But you just hit the nail on the head there with the lack of talent on the outside, the lack of explosiveness at receiver, but most importantly, and you can bet your ass that I'm going to relate this back to Anthony Richardson, Blake.
Of course you are.
They had a top 4 pick on their roster playing the quarterback position. And one of the things that was talked about with Anthony Richardson is that if he takes a progression coming into last year, he could be one of the best players in the SEC. He didn't progress, and he was drafted based on a projection. That lack of progression is on Billy Napier. It is very concerning that one of the most athletic quarterbacks in the country didn't improve at all coming into the season, and at times was a significant liability. So I can't sit here and be optimistic, and I think it's Graham Mertz. We're assuming it's Graham Mertz because
Who else would it be?
I don't know. There hasn't been a ton of clarity, but Graham Mertz is so bad that maybe there's somebody else behind him that sneaks out and plays better than him. But I can't be confident that Graham Mertz puts it together and plays well this year, because if you can't get Anthony Richardson to play up to the level you need him to, Graham Mertz sure as hell is not going to. If you don't have at least an average quarterback in the SEC, you sure as hell are not going to go 500.
Man, look, I don't like to make a lot of spring games, and I'm not going to make one here, but it wasn't good. Okay. They did not have a good spring game. And look, they've had a lot of chaos surrounding them. Okay. Whether it be Jaden Rashada, whatever it may be, they've had a lot of chaos. Okay. And things have been somewhat quiet, but they're not recruiting at a high level. Considering where Florida probably should be. They're 21st in the country right now. Now, they finished in the top 15. They finished at 12. But you got to be better at Florida in recruiting than being 12th.
Right. You need to – Florida is such a desirable – it's good, actually, very underrated academic school, but it's a very desirable program. There's no reason why they shouldn't be top 7. Absolutely no reason why they shouldn't be top 7.
Well, at least if they fall out a year or two, you got to get there at least twice in 2 years. Like, yes. If every 4 years, you got to be there twice, because look, they had 4 Power 5 schools in that state. Mm-hmm. UCF, Miami, Florida State, and Florida. That's the most, I think, in any state outside of California, maybe. So, and I don't even think,
well, outside of USC, like UCLA doesn't really kill it on the trail.
Am I leaving somebody out that might be a Power 5 in California?
Cal, I don't know if I'd really count
okay, them. So, but still, regardless, I mean, look, I just don't have any faith in them at their skill positions. I don't have any faith in them at quarterback. I don't have any faith in them along the defensive line, really outside McClellan. They're going to have a lot of young guys step up. Now, they did go into the transfer portal. They did go get R.J. Moten that could play safety and help a young core out. They went out and got Ronald Nunnery, who's another guy that could play safety for them. The problem is if Billy's going to continue to run, I don't think it really comes down to athletes as much as it, like you mentioned, I don't think it comes down to athletes as much as it comes down to I don't trust Billy Napier, and I never have. Billy Napier is always going to be tied with 2 other head coaches, that being Lincoln Riley when he went to USC and Brian Kelly when he was at LSU. Mm-hmm. I think he was the least, and Brent Venables at Oklahoma. I think of all the hires, it was the worst. I like Billy. I think Billy's a good offensive coach, but you're going to have to show me something at some point. If you're going to run Graham Mertz out there for me, sorry, bud. Sorry.
That's where I'm coming from with this is like, we've already done, this is actually probably the first like negative one that we've done. We every other one, we've been super optimistic, and it's because they're ranked in the top 25, and they're ranked in the top 25 for a reason. We're talking about how they're going to be in the conversation in the top of their division or in their conference. I don't see something that I can go, well, if this works out, they're going to win 8 games, 9 games. I can't find something tangible on their roster. What momentum do they have from last year that they're carrying into this upcoming season that is positive?
Look, let me throw this out. And I know Banks said that first off, it's not that they have the best average. Average means nothing when you don't have enough dynamic players. Okay?
What does that mean? Best player average is like the best average rated recruit? Is that what the argument is?
I don't know, but you can have 2 5-stars, but that's 2 dudes that can't help you now, right? Like,
yeah. And if you're trotting those guys out, all those guys out, it's a problem.
Well, there's a lot of teams that get multiple 5-stars and have. Texas comes to mind. How's Texas been? It's
Texas
about
A&M.
Texas A&M. It's been about the entire class. I just have zero faith in Billy Napier. Look, Joe, you kind of hit the nail on the head. I'm going to disagree with you. I do think that Anthony Richardson made progressions, okay, and kind of some vast ones. I think he learned how to read coverage better. I think he was better in the pocket than he was with Dan Mullen. There were things that he got better at. But this pistol, long zone, wide zone is not going to work in the SEC. You have to get north and south. And Billy, of all people, should know that since he's been with Nick Saban in Alabama. They do have some pieces along the offensive line. But they lost games last year with the top 4 pick in the NFL drafted quarterback that they have zero business losing. They beat Texas A&M when Texas A&M had, what, Joe, was it 27 players out for the flu or something crazy like that? Yeah. You can't lose to Vandy. You just can't lose to Vandy. So why should I come in here with any hope whatsoever that they're going to be better? Where did they get better? If a Florida fan or media member can come in here and tell me where they've gotten better, okay then. Well, we got better at this position. Well, you lost Osiris Torrance. If you got Goodwin, well, Osiris Torrance is out. So are you going to remain the same? Well, Blake, it's a different position. One's a guard, one's a tackle. It's still an offensive piece along that offensive line. What are you going to do with a younger group outside? Look, you have 2 guys at wide receiver that you're going to have to hope you hit on that are freshmen in Aiden Mizell and Jakeem Jackson. Because outside of that, Joe, you got Caleb Douglas is one of their receivers, and he's a former 3-star. We set on him to make things happen. No, you're not. No, you're not. And quite honestly, do they throw the football at a high enough clip, and do they have the weapons on the outside to compete in the SEC? No, they don't. This isn't Georgia. They're not going to be able to line up and run the ball down someone's throat. Let me say this.
Okay.
They can run the football and do it at somewhat of an effective clip, but not at what everybody thinks that they can. And you're going to be able to have to throw the ball down the field, and Graham Mertz is not going to lead you there.
I will say this. I'm not saying I disagree with your statement, but if something does work out for Florida and something does help them win football games, it will be running the football. I really like Trevor Etienne.
Joe,
I know he's not a big back.
They played the bigger teams, Florida State, LSU, Georgia, guess what happened? I don't care if you're running the ball against South Carolina. I don't care if you're running the ball against Tennessee. I don't care if you're running the ball against other teams. When you got to play those teams that you're normally compared to, you got to win.
Well, right. This is where like it's very problematic for me, because the take I was just about to state, I almost didn't preface it with this. It's a foregone conclusion that they're going to lose to those teams. It just is. But that shouldn't happen for Florida. That shouldn't be happening with a program that is as prestigious and as consistently successful as Florida. We shouldn't be sitting here saying that it's a foregone conclusion that they're going to lose to the top teams on their schedule. But I mean, to that point, if they get to 7 wins, it's going to be because they run the ball well against the crappy teams on their schedule. That's what's going to take. But I have no optimism that they can upset somebody.
No, they got to make sure that they beat Vandy.
Who do you realistically, and I think we kind of talked about this when we did the division preview for them. How many games do you think that they win in 2023?
2023. So this year, how many games do I think they win? And they were 7-6 a year ago, 7-5. No, they were 6-6.
Yes, they were 6-6.
6-7. I think they lost their bowl game, correct?
Yeah, they got dogged. Like I
think their ceiling is 7 wins.
That's where I'm at. I think that realistically it's 6-6 again. But are we at the point where we can sit here and commit to maybe them being worse than that? Can we sit here and say that maybe they're worse than 6-6? Like I don't know if I go that far. That's where I calm myself a little bit.
Say that again.
I don't know if I can go as far as to say that they finished the season below 500.
Well, where did they get better?
Nowhere. I think they've remained pretty stagnant. Because they did pull some kids in the portal, but they also lost a bunch of kids, mostly depth, and they also lost Anthony Richardson.
So they're not. They're not. I don't know if they're going to get. They're not going to be above 6-6.
What does it take for Billy to get fired?
Go 6-6.
You think they fire him after a 6-6 year?
Are they going to allow him to have a third year?
That's why I'm bringing up this question. Is that like I'm trying to think of what would lead to them saying, all right, we've seen enough, because this roster is not good enough, as we're talking about, to win more than 7 games. It's not. So if they get to 7 wins and they pull that out,
if they get to 7 wins, maybe he gets another year. But let me tell you something. Mm-hmm. And as somebody who, look, LSU has played Florida every year. I remember the 07 game with Jacob Hester and Tim Tebow. And look, LSU and Florida back and forth have had fantastic games. And LSU's going to play Florida again. They're going to keep that rivalry for whatever it's worth. Here's my thing. Okay? They're not even remotely close to where they need to be. And I think the fan base is pissed off. They fired Billy Napier a year after coming off an SEC East championship and one bad year because he wasn't recruiting at a good enough level. What are you going to do with Billy Napier when he's not winning?
Well, exactly my point.
And I don't know if their AD makes it through it. I mean, how many coaches, head football coaches, is he going to hire before he gets the can?
How long has he been there? You might know this.
I'd have to look up how many years, Scott. Somebody to check. Mike could be. It feels like he's been there for close to a decade. Now I could be wrong there, but I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, look at the head coaches that they've hired in the last couple of years. They've hired Mullen. They've had Muschamp. They had McElwain.
And the Mullen was the best one.
And Mullen arguably was the best one.
I think. I don't know if there's even an argument, because like was McElwain good enough to be a part of the argument?
He constantly won the SEC East when the SEC East was down. But remember, he lied about the credit card fraud thing, and he got caught up in a lie, and they fired him. And I mean, man had that dude had more yellow teeth than, I mean, the dude looked like a horse. They have been horrendous, and I mean horrendous, at legitimately hiring head football coaches. They're notorious at this point for hiring bad head coaches in football. Billy Napier's system and scheme, Joey went through this all during the season. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to show me where they're advanced at a college level scheme-wise, because we put on the all-22 copy and they're not advanced. You can't run a slant and then turn around and run a sluggo and think that you're going to confuse people. Here's the ultimate question. How much did Anthony Richardson, how much did he overcome with deficiencies? So let me ask you this. If Anthony Richardson goes into Indianapolis and balls out for whatever reason,
which he will,
and Florida chokes, okay, how horrible is that going to look on Billy?
It looks terrible. And that was what my whole leading argument is that to have that guy on your roster and for him to actually develop when given direction and given proper development, that is a huge indication of the concern here for Billy Napier, because as you're talking about, he's supposed to know what he's doing offensively, and he can't even get his quarterbacks to play up to the level of expectation or to improve. You need some level of improvement from those guys that are that ultra explosive and ultra athletic. I just do wonder, though, like Brian Harson's the example that comes back to this all. He was in and out really quick. Terrible job recruiting. I feel like Napier's done a better job recruiting early on than what Brian Harsin did.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I will agree with that. But Harsin, man, is he Brian Harsin?
We made that allegory.
Brian Harsin? No, because Billy just recruits at such a higher level than Harsin did.
Yeah, the reason why we made that comparison very early on in this process when we talked about the Jaden Rashada stuff is that they both had like off-season, behind closed doors drama that we were kind of speculating on.
I mean, Billy didn't have sex with a secretary, though.
Allegedly, but that's the
Clessy's cheeks. Hold on, Harsin was clapping Clessy's cheeks. Shout out to Clessy. That's her name, by the way. Clessy's her name. She was a cheerleader at Boise State, and she followed him here.
My point is that there was okay.
I mean, he was clapping Clessy's cheeks.
My point is that there were conversations that were had about rumors that the booster,
yes, Clessy,
that the boosters were trying to push out there to have cause to fire him.
Well, and that's the real truth. That's the real truth.
And I think that there could be a comparison made between what happened there and now what happened this past offseason with the whole Jane Rashada thing, because it's a lot of he said, she said.
Well, nobody Florida's got a crap load of money. I'm just wondering when they go and make a move like what USC did or what LSU did. And look, you can hate what Oklahoma did, but like what Oklahoma did, I mean, listen. I mean, even let's call it what it is. I mean, even Heupel is a better coach, I think, and had a little bit more of a track record than Napier did. Look, Billy won the Sun Belt. Billy would get his cheeks clapped when it was crunch time. Coastal Carolina would clap them ever living cheeks now.
Yeah.
Look, I don't like Billy's offense. I think his offense is too high school. I don't trust a guy that says that I cut my own hair. Head coaches don't cut their own hair, Joe. I don't trust it. It's like guys that, put their hats all the way like this. Like, I mean, I don't trust him. Here's the bottom line, though. I can dislike Billy Napier as the play caller. I do think he's a good coach. I think he's a good leader of men. A lot of those kids like him a lot. I think that says a lot about him as a person and as a coach. But the bottom line is, they just don't have the dudes, man. And look, I know Austin. I've told you this. I think I've showed you times that we've been together. And Austin's a great coach. Austin Armstrong's a great coach. They better pray to God they got the defensive version of Joe Brady. They better pray to sweet Jesus. But they ain't got no – I mean –
they do have some athletes on the defensive side of the football.
They do. They got some
play
pieces
really
up
well.
front. I'll give them that. But their secondary is inexperienced. But, I mean, look, you went out to the transfer portal and got two safeties that can play for you right away.
Mm-hmm.
You went out and
D lineman as well.
D lineman as well. They do look. They're not like, you're not just going to walk into Gainesville and beat the shit out of them. Like, that's not going to happen.
No.
The problem is offensively, I think they're so dormant at quarterback and the weapons on the outside. Yeah, you can run the ball, but when a team look, it's a Les Miles effect, right? Like it's a Sam Pittman effect. You know what teams do against Sam Pittman? I told you, you're going to know who the coordinator is as soon as I say that. So no, it's not LSU. But I talked to an SEC coordinator the other week, and he was already calling, and he was making jokes, and he's out here saying stuff like, dude, we literally put 7-8 guys in the box with a free high safety, and we're like, please throw the football. Right? Like, please throw the football. The bottom line is, for me, is when you get to brass tacks, can they do enough to win 7 games? And I don't think that they can. I really just don't see it anywhere. So I know that a lot of Florida people are going to get mad at us behind this, but Joe, I'm going to stick with my guns. I don't think they get to 7 wins. And if they do, I think, well, look, if they do, I will come on here and apologize to Billy Napier. Like, I that doesn't bother me.
Really?
Yeah, because look, I have no, Joe, I used to do a segment where Blake was right, where Blake was wrong. And I'll do it again. I have no problem saying where I was wrong. The problem is that I just don't see it. Like, the eye in the sky's got to matter at some point, instead of, we got this guy, we got that guy. It's not easy to turn over your roster and turn over a coaching staff 2 years in a row and think you're going to be any good. That's the one thing that we haven't mentioned, Joe, about Florida. They've had a roster turnover and they've had a coaching turnover. So everybody's learning something new again defensively. Good luck. That's all I got to say about it.
Yeah, and final thought on that, and it kind of just reiterates everything we talked about. There's just so much turnover. I will say that if there are more recruiting wins and they do pull some more highly rated kids, that could buy Billy some time, because what we talked about earlier is that Dan Mullen didn't really recruit and he didn't do it at a high level. So it might take him longer.
I mean, but yeah, okay, well, he didn't recruit. I understand what you're saying there. He won the SEC East.
But what I'm trying to
He
get
won.
at is,
I don't care what the
but
recruiting.
Billy's using the roster that didn't have is currently using a roster.
It had a top.
It had Anthony Richardson, but outside of that, they're like, what big recruits did
they all went in the
have?
portal? That's not on Dan.
And that is true.
That's not on Dan.
Yeah,
Billy went through more kids in the portal than I go through draws in a year.
My point is that if Billy sticks around, he's going to need to have some massive wins in the portal. That's what he's going to, or not in the portal.
He's going to have to hit on every portal piece he brought in.
And every upcoming recruit as well.
All right. Want to transition to this SEC schedule?
Yeah, let's get after it.
Dude, we got some big matchups.
Okay.
All right, Bama's got Georgia at home. They got LSU. Tennessee's got Oklahoma. So Josh Heupel gets to play.
Cool.
He gets to play against a team that he was a coordinator and quarterback for. Here's an interesting one. Ole Miss and Florida. The last time that I remember, you're probably too young to remember this, but Ole Miss was Tim Tebow's only loss. Remember, and Tebow made that speech. I will be dedicated. I will never lose again. And then he won the he didn't win the Heisman that year, but he went on to win the rest of those games. They won a national title. That's always an interesting one. We talked about LSU. They have Oklahoma, Bama, A&M, and Florida. Here's an interesting one: Kentucky and Texas.
It feels I have such a strange taste in my mouth.
Where
is that? Is that home for Kentucky?
I just wrote the games down. I didn't write home or away on them.
Okay.
But man, what if Texas? Let me ask you this question: does Texas beat Oklahoma this year? Like if they played right now, does Texas beat Oklahoma? I mean, beat Kentucky. Okay.
Yes.
Georgia gets Florida, Bama, Tennessee, and Texas.
Wait. Florida, Tennessee, and Texas.
Florida, Bama, Tennessee, and Texas.
That's a pretty tough draw.
It's a very tough draw.
I know that we give a lot of shit to Texas, by the way. I think in 2024, there's a chance that roster could be pretty good. If things go well this year, that roster could be pretty good.
Here's my question. Well, I'll get to that in just a minute. Florida. They draw LSU, Tennessee, Texas, and Georgia. That's also a tough stretch.
Yes.
Okay.
We know exactly how we think they're going to do.
Yeah, man, but it's not tougher than this one. You ready?
Okay.
Auburn got hosed again. Now, their biggest rivals are Georgia and Alabama. Okay. They got Oklahoma in there too.
But
they got hosed, Joe. Let me ask you this question. If you're Auburn in the month of November and you got to play Georgia, Bama, Oklahoma, and let's say I'm throwing this out there. I don't remember all their games, but let's just say Tennessee or South Carolina or whoever it is. Buddy, Auburn has, let's call it what it is. Auburn historically has the toughest schedule in the country every year.
Yeah, because they've got some of the worst rivals. But I mean, Alabama. I know that they schedule some pretty soft FCS opponents, but Alabama is usually up there as well. But it stems from Auburn having to play Alabama, and then you're talking about them having to play Georgia.
Well, they play both of those teams every year, no matter what.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I wouldn't sit here and say that that's not unovercomable. Like, I don't think that they can't.
What's overcome? What's overcome? What did you put overcome?
I'm not saying that they can't get past that obstacle. You stink. I'm not saying that they can't get past those obstacles. It is going to be hard to completely sweep that lineup. And I mean, maybe there's a little bit of leeway given to Hugh Freeze having to face those opponents.
Can I just tell you something? When you pronounce words, you use the perverted word, like you pronunciate.
I don't. No, you just listen for the word come.
This is how you say overcome. You said they overcomed and like you paused in between.
No. Okay, I said it because it was that's not unovercomable is not a word, so I was trying to maybe it is a word. try to make it into a word, so I said it a little too slow. You just hear the word "come" and you think it's funny. That's the only part that you hear. That's the difference. That's really what's happening.
Okay, you're probably not wrong.
Yeah,
you're probably not wrong. Arkansas gets Texas, Tennessee, and LSU. I don't think that's a bad draw.
No.
And A&M has Texas, Florida, and South Carolina. So they miss no, they have LSU as well. So, I mean, look, even A&M, there could be a month stretch where they have LSU, Texas, Florida, and South Carolina. That's pretty tough for them.
Oh, wait, but to have to play, assuming Jimbo's still there, that's a pretty good draw. Like, what, LSU's the most difficult game out of that? And Texas isn't going to be easy because it's a rivalry that is being reinstated. So that first game is going to be highly contested. So I don't think that might be one of the easier pulls. I think that Jimbo pulled out with, because they don't have very many SEC rivals. So they're going to get an advantageous pull there.
Yeah, South Carolina, as an example, they have A&M, LSU, Ole Miss, Missouri, Oklahoma, Alabama, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt. I don't know. South Carolina's got a tough one too, man. They skipped Georgia, but in return,
they stink.
Well, again, though, see, this is where I want to go with all this. Okay, you ready? This is why, Joe, I said that the 9-game conference schedule was not created equally. Because, listen, if you're South Carolina, again, you could be in a month where you have Ole Miss, A&M, LSU, Alabama, Oklahoma. Buddy, stop. That is not an easy stretch. Nate,
it's hard for a bad team. It's hard for a bad team. That's exactly what this is.
Let me see here. I'm not going to use Georgia because that's too easy. That's too easy. Let me pull up a decent team. All right, you want to go Ole Miss? Ole Miss has LSU, Florida, Arkansas, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Mississippi State, Kentucky, Georgia.
But that's not that as daunting for Ole Miss.
Okay, well, let me read it in a different way. Let me read it in a different way. If you were 8-1 going into November, and you had Georgia, LSU, Florida, and Mississippi State.
I only see two difficult because there's too many unprovens there. Mississippi State is very unproven, and Florida is extremely unproven.
All right,
as we just
cut
talked about.
Oklahoma's last year out. Cut their last year out.
They're also unproven, but they're also very unproven. And this is what I was going to say earlier.
Cut last year out. Act like that they've been historically the team that they've played.
Look, I've been more supportive of Oklahoma on this program than you have been. I've gone to bat for them.
It's not created equally, Joe. Name a tougher okay, here's the point. You're saying it's easier. It's not that bad. Name a tougher one in the Big Ten.
We're not talking about the Big Ten. We're talking about the SEC schedule.
Hold on.
Okay.
Name a tougher one in the ACC. Hold on.
Definitely not the ACC. Definitely no one in the ACC.
Name one in the Big 12.
Definitely no one in the Big 12.
Okay, so what you're telling me is in a 3-month season that the SEC schedules, every team has a month that equally is as daunting as any other conference combined.
Yeah, I mean they have
stop.
More difficult opponents to play up and down.
You were trying to argue. You say it's me. It's really your happy ass, Mr. Swoley Swoop on your hair. Okay? Here's the truth.
Okay.
It's not the 9-game conference schedule is not created equally when you talk about the SEC and the Big Ten. It's not, because you know who I don't get to play in between there? Northwestern.
They play Vanderbilt.
No, they don't.
But there are also teams on this schedule for any of these teams. My whole point is that I don't know how competitive Oklahoma is going to be. I don't know how competitive Mississippi State's going to be.
I have one Vanderbilt. You have 77 of them.
We know that there's more depth in the schedule for the SEC.
That's all I was trying to say.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying of the matchups and the opponents that they have.
Are you related to somebody that has a sports show that has the initials IB? Because you're acting like him right now.
I'm okay. That's a low blow. Don't.
That's pretty low.
Don't.
Do you think he eats lint out of his belly button?
Probably. I don't know. I know he doesn't get up often. Blake, look,
Okay.
my point that I was trying to get to with Oklahoma, though, I think if anybody struggles, it's going to be Oklahoma. It is going to be
Well, let's look at their schedule.
Because they are coming in with the most question marks.
All right, you want their schedule?
Yeah, read it to me. I know we brought it up earlier.
All right, this is what their month would look like. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee, LSU, Alabama, Texas, Auburn.
I don't know. I can sit here and say that they're going to go over 500 in their first year. Look, as much as we want to direct negativity towards Texas, let's focus on what's going on and what Oklahoma's going to.
Let's focus on Oklahoma for just a second.
Yeah.
Joe, let me tell you something. I agree with you here, and you might need to clip this. So as we look at this 2024 schedule, I'm just paraphrasing here, but this could be their like a month for them. Texas, Alabama, Tennessee, Auburn with Hugh Freeze, LSU, Ole Miss is also in there.
What's scarier for me?
Well, hold on once. That might be the toughest SEC conference schedule I've ever seen. Let me reread it. In a month, they have Tennessee, Texas, Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Ole Miss. Name a tougher schedule, and that is insanity.
That's what I was trying to get at. That was my point, is that Oklahoma is stepping into the depths of hell, having to fight their way to some level of relevance in the SEC in their first season. Look, Oklahoma fans, I have supported you guys. I've spoken somewhat positively about you guys. It is going to be a bloodbath that first season. I don't know how you can look at that and say that that is a winning record. There is no shot in hell that they are going to have a winning record their first year in the SEC. The two easiest games on there are maybe Ole Miss and Auburn in Hugh Freeze's second season. Venables has a lot of work to do, man. They got some good recruits, but they better sure as hope that they have a lot of momentum riding into this first year in the SEC.
But in fairness, see, I tricked you. So keep this clip in here. Keep that clip in here. Okay. Here's the thing, though. You know who else has those same kinds of schedules? Everybody else. Because you know who else could say the same thing? I'm looking at it right now. Kentucky. You know who has same kind of somewhat similar? South Carolina. You know who has something somewhat similar? Georgia. I look at Georgia. Hold on. Okay. They have, in a month, they will more than likely could have Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss. See, here's the difference. Oklahoma damn near has the same exact schedule that Georgia does. But you know what Georgia's going to do. This has been the gauntlet in the SEC every freaking year. It doesn't change. And now that Texas and Oklahoma are in it, everybody's like, oh, wow, those teams are going to get killed. Well, that was my point all last year, that a 2-loss SEC team is not created equally. Because if Oklahoma in year one went 8-4, you know what you and I would be saying? That's a damn good year. It's a damn good year. They battled their asses off.
Yeah, an 8-win season in the SEC is not
with
easily attainable. But like, I don't like using Georgia as an example because their expectation of level of competition is much different. But I think that the main takeaway from this is that not only are they stepping into what is going to be a bloody schedule, they're also doing it when they're trying to regain their footing after getting picked apart by Lincoln Riley leaving. Lincoln left, took a bunch of his Ferraris with him, his Louis with him, his Louis bags with him, and he left Brent Venables to figure it out. Brent Venables has been trying to attack the portal. He has been trying to attack recruiting. They could be competitive. I'm actually, as much as we're trying to sit here and compare them to some of these other schedules that Kentucky and South Carolina play and whatnot, Blake, can you say that South Carolina and Kentucky and Mississippi State and Missouri, who are typically the lower half of the SEC, can we say that they have the same level of recruiting class as Oklahoma did last year? I think Oklahoma's got a better roster than those teams. They got better recruits coming in. I know that they'll beat those
They
programs.
do have better recruits. And here's the thing, though. We compare, like what you just did was you compared Oklahoma to the middle of the pack teams in the SEC, which I don't.
Yeah, you pulled up their schedules. That's why I'm comparing them.
Yeah, but here's my thing, though. They're going to the same gauntlet as Oklahoma is. If Oklahoma is who they say they are and they're recruiting at the level that they say that they are, well, then you should be fine.
Theoretically,
then you should be a 9-3 team. You're not going to be a 9-3 team.
No, because there is.
Look, I know Cody Peck, official in here, says that LSU has a tougher overall schedule in 24. We're forgetting for like an LSU sake, and some of these other SEC teams that have already been in the conference, like LSU has USC and UCLA in 24.
LSU does?
Yeah.
They have both USC and UCLA.
Yes. Remember, USC is going to UCLA is coming here. At least it's on their
schedule. I know that.
And then USC's in Vegas.
That's kind of sick. I know that is. I mean, from your perspective,
hey,
that sucks, but that's really cool.
And actually doesn't suck. You know, the times that LSU does that, what happens? They win natties every time.
Hey, fire is how you build championships.
Yeah, when we beat Lincoln Riley down, I swear to God.
Are you gonna go to Vegas for that?
I'm gonna overcome it, as you said earlier.
That doesn't work. You just wanted to say come. You just wanted to say come. God damn.
Dude, this is some brutal schedules, though, dude. There's some teams in here that aren't gonna make it, Joe. Let me go.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That's what I was. Again, it's part of what I was.
Let me go down to Texas. Let's talk about Texas.
Okay.
Damn, I just looked at Tennessee. I mean, really, Tennessee doesn't have a bad schedule. Let me look at Texas one more time. Hold on.
I actually, in retrospect, from what you brought up earlier, I'm not too scared of that schedule. But read it.
Florida, Georgia.
That's bad.
Kentucky, Mississippi State at home. Away, you have Arkansas, Oklahoma, A&M, Vandy.
So realistically,
I think they could beat Oklahoma and Vandy. There's no telling what happens in A&M. They're telling what happens in Arkansas. They might be a 4-4 SEC team, 4-4 in conference,
which is attainable. I mean, like again, as much as we try, we are not fans of the University of Texas.
I don't hate them.
They got a pretty favorable draw. Like, if we're being honest here, out of all these other teams that they've brought
Oklahoma,
way more favorable than Oklahoma. There's two really hard games. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Did you see the game Monday night? The baseball game?
I caught the final play. I didn't watch the game.
Is the most Texas way to lose. It's the most. They choke all the time.
Oh yeah.
They're like Mariah Mills on Zion, choking the big game.
And maybe they choked their way through a schedule that's the bit of a handout. Someone had to have been lying in somebody's pockets. I'm gonna go as far as say that is a handout schedule for Texas. For a first year, that is a handout schedule. There are a lot of beatable opponents on there. Georgia, obviously not. And then I think, did you say Tennessee?
Because, man, listen, I know that they have Georgia, but they miss Alabama and LSU. They miss Ole Miss. They miss Auburn. I mean, exactly, look, here's the thing. Like Georgia, Arkansas, and Oklahoma are not Arkansas. Georgia, A&M, and Oklahoma might be the games that they fear the most. I mean, that could be a 9-3 team year one. God bless it if they go 9-3 year one in the SEC.
Oh, it's going to be unbearable. It's going to be like, we're the next team to take over the SEC. By the way, we didn't get to it, but we wrote down that we were going to talk about the Brett McMurphy tweet about
table it. It's not
the revenue stuff. I did have a very annoying take, so I will save it that Texas finished second there. Imagine whether they're going to be in the SEC, Blake, and they finished second in overall college revenue. Imagine what they're going to do in the SEC with all that money. Do you think they make more money than finishing second? Do you think they pass Ohio State?
Joe.
In the SEC?
Joe.
I think that they surpass Ohio State.
Joe.
They finished 4 spots ahead of LSU.
Joe.
They finished
Joe.
3 spots ahead of Georgia.
Joe.
Yes, Blake.
They gonna get their ass whipped.
All right, we'll see.
See y'all Saturday. They gonna get their ass whipped.
We'll see.
Dude, poor Brent Venables, man. Whew.
Yeah, he might be getting kicked out the door before things even get started.
Yeah. Where's Bob Stutz with them? See y'all Saturday, guys. Peace.